It is predicted that on February 17th, 2026, there will be a Black Swan financial event. A massive shock to the stock market, a massive loss on the state, and this prediction is being made ahead of time. The date that this video was posted on the social media platform you are watching it on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email. And if you're skeptical for some reason, please email me and I'll forward it to you. This email, as we can see, is composed on February 16th, but lest you think that I'm playing some sort of game with the time zones or something, I have this for you here too, because this knowledge of the Black Swan connection is documented here in this email as being on February 15th. I'll explain this more in a second. That said, I also have another video that was posted a few days ago, also predicting the beginning of the biggest stock market crash in world history to begin on February 17th. So, in other words, it has been known for many days that God is pointing to February 17th in regards to the stock market. Okay, and that video is already posted with a post date well in advance of February 17th. All right, welcome. In this video, it is being predicted that on February 17th, 2026, there will be a Black Swan event. What is a Black Swan event? A so-called Black Swan event is a high-impact event that is difficult to predict under normal circumstances, but that in retrospect appears to have been inevitable. A Black Swan event is unexpected and therefore difficult to prepare for, but is often rationalized with the benefit of hindsight as having been unavoidable. The big examples of Black Swan events in the 21st century are financial crises. For example, the crash in 2008 is said to have been unexpected, although there were those like myself and other Elioticians, socioeconomics followers that knew it, but we were, of course, an extreme minority. And that's the thing about Black Swan events, is that it's unexpected by the majority. Doesn't mean that no one is expecting it, which is the case with what I'm talking about for February 17th. But I'll get to that in a second. The stock market crash surrounding COVID was another example of a Black Swan event. Also, 9/11 was a Black Swan event. In retrospect, we could see that this was inevitable, but there were, of course, many people prior to 9/11 that were saying that it was inevitable that a terrorist would drive a plane into the buildings. This wasn't unheard of prior to 2001. Anyway, so this is what a Black Swan event is, and it's often associated with financial events. For example, another Black Swan event was the Black Monday crash in 1987, when the Dow lost 23% in value in one day. Another Black Swan event was the crash in 1929. Okay, so we are expecting, or rather, this video is documenting the prediction that there will be a Black Swan event, but specifically on February 17th. And this precision is what makes this from God. This is a prediction from God because of the precise date that this is being predicted for. Okay, so it's one thing to predict that there will be soon a Black Swan event. Of course, the majority aren't expecting it, but it's not necessarily from God to predict that there's gonna be a Black Swan event. What makes this from God, I'll just repeat myself, is the precise date that this is being predicted for. February 17th, 2026. Now, if for some reason, if perhaps you are a hardcore agnostic atheist, religionist, fundamentalist, and that isn't enough for you, then know this. The reasons for knowing this, which I will explain in this video, prove beyond a doubt for a rational person that this prediction is from God. No human being is creative enough to have concocted these reasons that I'll be explaining in their own imagination. This will be clear. But that said, human beings are not rational. It is their nature. Before I get into that, let's just document this prediction a little more here. See, this email was composed that contains these reasons on February 16th. It is before February 17th. But if you are not satisfied with that, I have this for you. Because this knowledge was discovered on the 15th. As we can see here, February 15th. Okay? February 15th. So if you think I'm doing some kind of time zone trick or something, well, it's February 15th in this email. And if you are skeptical for some reason, email me and I'll forward these emails to you. Okay, so I clearly know before February 17th that there will be a Black Swan event on February 17th. Now let's talk about the agnostic atheist a little bit more. Because human beings aren't rational, and God created human beings this way. There's something in psychology called belief perseverance, which states that when confronted with information that contradicts a person's worldview, they block it out. It goes in one ear and out the other. They do not register it. It does not sink in. It's not formulated into their mind. Like, for example, they'll watch this video and they might even think it's interesting. Then they'll turn off the video after the prediction, that is. They'll watch this video after the prediction, know that I predicted it ahead of time, and even cannot come up with an explanation for how February 15th in the email, how the email is documented to have been composed on February 15th. And yet, they'll turn off the video and then go about their daily business as if they heard nothing. Nothing happened. They didn't watch this video. That's belief perseverance. Why do people have belief perseverance? Well, because changing a person's worldview is extremely uncomfortable. It's their unconscious even. They don't want, unconsciously, they block it out because they do not want to change their worldview. They're quite happy with their current worldview. They're not interested in changing their worldview because it's extremely uncomfortable, for one thing. It means they will have to change their life because a person is their worldview. That's right. Our mind is made from our worldview. We go through life with the underlying worldview guiding us. Everything we do in our decisions, etc., whether we know it or think about it or not, our worldview is guiding us. We are what we believe. And people don't want to change by nature. That said, people especially do not want to change into a worldview in which the righteous Christian God of the Bible is true. People do not like that at all. Agnostic atheists are repelled by this idea. They find it icky to consider there to be a God that they would want to pray to in the mornings, for example. That's not them. They do not want that. So they tell themselves the biggest lie, the fairy tale for adults, materialism, and they tell themselves something to comfort themselves, which is the core belief of the agnostic atheist worldview. Every worldview is a religion, and every religion has a core belief. For example, the core belief of the Christian worldview is that there is a personal being, God, and he is righteous. And this is quite different than what is called pantheism, which is the Eastern Hindu worldview or the New Ager worldview, because many Westerners have adopted Eastern thought into their own form of religion called New Age or New Spirituality, which is that God isn't a personal being but an impersonal energy and is the universe itself and a so-called collective consciousness, which of course both can't be true. Monotheism and pantheism fundamentally conflict, and it is impossible, of course, for them to be both true. although many confused New Agers do their best to try in their mind to make them both true. Anyway, the core belief of the agnostic atheist is this: there may or may not be a God, but it is impossible to know the truth because there is no evidence for God. But this is the biggest lie. It is such a lie that it's absurd, because the evidence is all around, including scientific evidence. I mean, they will say there's no scientific evidence, but they're in 19th century science, early 19th century, late 18th century science that gave birth to this materialism worldview, which said, well, we have geology now. We don't need the flood to explain the lines in the rocks. That's the sort of thinking. It's so centuries ago. early 20th century science overwhelmingly has proven that there is an intelligent designer. But I don't want to make this video about that subject, about apologetics and the lie of agnostic atheism and there not being any evidence for the righteous Christian God of the Bible. Okay. Anyway, the purpose of this video is to hopefully shock them, crack open the nut to get them to start thinking a little bit. But the reason, and I'll give you this one more thought, the reason why you don't see God, because the atheist will say, well, I should say this: no evidence ever will be satisfactory for the atheist, including God standing in front of their face and saying, hey, I'm God, Even that would not suffice. Richard Dawkins has said as such. And the reason is because, well, then they'll just dismiss it later as them being delusional. So there's absolutely no evidence possible for these people. And that's because of their dogmatic religion that they want to believe. And people believe what they want to believe. Belief perseverance. For example, someone born into the tribe of Islam or Catholicism, their family is that as such, they will remain in that simply out of pride, which is in the Bible the root of sin. So they're also not interested in truth. And also there's something in psychology, in evolutionary psychology, referred to as the soldier versus scout mindset. Only 10% of people are scouts, 90% of people are soldiers. Soldiers defend their worldview. Scouts are interested in finding the most accurate map possible of reality. They're rare. But they've studied this, and in crises situations like a plane going down in the Patagonia or something and survival, it's the scouts that survive. And the dogmatic people that stick. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that people defend their worldview. If they're born into Catholicism is true, or they're born into Islam is true, case closed. They don't even think about it. The concept of discovering the truth for themselves is like a foreign idea. They don't even understand the concept, which is why I can't relate to that. I mean, to the Catholic, I have said before, wow, you're really lucky. You got born into the correct, true religion. How lucky are you? Congratulations. You won the lottery when you were born. You were born into the true religion. Fantastic. I mean, it's absurd, right? And same with the Islamists. But that's another subject. What I want to say is that the reason why you don't see God standing in front of your face, giving you the truth about the righteous Christian God of the Bible, is the reason for that is a good reason. God, if he were to desire a relationship with the creature, if he just created the creature and then stood in front of it and said, hey, welcome to life. You're now alive and I'm God and love me. Well, that would be forced and insincere, disingenuous love. It wouldn't be, it'd be like someone marrying a robot, and no one would want to marry someone who was forced to love them or a robot. And so, in order to achieve what God wants, he needs to partially hide himself and give the opportunity for the creature to have free will, which is how we are created in the image of God, to make a choice and provide all the evidence necessary. Of course, the agnostic atheist lie about there not being evidence is like the biggest lie in history. And let them choose whether whether or not they want to be with God or not, or instead go their own way. If you find it icky, you don't want to be with praying to a God, then why would you want to be with God forever in heaven if that's icky for you? So you're making the choice. That's what life is about. You get full freedom. It's a beautiful thing. You get to choose, because immortality is a huge responsibility on both ends. It's a huge responsibility for God to give you eternal life as well, because that makes you God-like. So you have to really want it. And therefore, if you do want it, you will want to learn about God and his ways, which is righteous. And so that's why. Okay, so anyway, just a heads up. When this prediction comes to pass, don't be a fool. Don't keep ignoring this. This could be your last chance. I mean, when will you ever have an opportunity like this, a prediction like this, to prove to you the truth, to crack open the nut, to pull off the blinders? Okay, now, I think I've established the introduction here. Let's get into these reasons that make it clear beyond a doubt that this is from God, and to conclude otherwise makes you a fool. Okay, the movie Black Swan. So there are many reasons for knowing that God is pointing to this date, February 17th, regarding a stock market event. But this is just a little bit here. And I really mean it's just one small sample of all of the other things. And the theme of this is this movie Black Swan. So this is why I've chosen this. Time is running out. I can't make videos for all of the things that I know for why God is how God is pointing to February 17th. But I'll give you the Black Swan information here, because we are predicting a Black Swan financial event. So the movie Black Swan, which was a very big, famous movie back in 2010. The movie Black Swan was released on February 17th, 2010, exactly 7 times 26 months before this February 17th, 2026. Does this mean, by the way, these are just notes. I'm writing this as the discoveries are coming. I already knew about February 17th. At first, I thought it might be the all-time peak of the stock market before the beginning of the biggest crash in history. And by the way, that's part of this prediction. Not only will there be a Black Swan event on February 17th, I'm also predicting that this will be the initial shock of the biggest financial crisis, stock market crash in all of history. Okay, that's another part of the prediction. Okay. But so I've known for a long time that February 17th, and I thought maybe it might be the all-time peak, but that's highly unlikely. And it's more likely that it'll be a Black Swan event, which is what caused me to look into connections from the Black Swan movie on February 15th. Again here, February 15th, okay? The Black Swan was released December 17th, 2010, exactly 7 times 26 months before February 17th. Black Swan event for 2017, confirmation of this. Because the reason why 7 times 26 months is relevant prophetically is because of the 726th word in the Greek concordance for the Bible. Okay, and I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, you see February 15th, okay? All right. Now, the word that I'm talking about in the concordance is the word for the rapture. It's used, for example, in Revelation chapter 12, which is about the rapture. There's actually some Christians that don't know that. But this Revelation 12 sign and the birth of the child is not referring to the first coming of Jesus. It's referring to the rapture. The child is caught up. It's in context of the end times and the Antichrist and Satan being thrown down from heaven to earth. This is an end times event. This is the rapture. And the word used is the Greek word rapio, which Jerome translated. This is how we get rapture. The word rapture. The word rapio means a violent snatching away. Well, Jesus wasn't violently snatched away after he was born. Okay? This is the rapture when God's faithful will disappear and be with the Lord in paradise, in the kingdom, and then return with the Lord at his second coming, years later. Okay? And furthermore, the rapture in the Bible is associated with a flight. Well, swans fly. They have wings. Now, that's why I wrote this here. In Revelation 12, the woman who gives birth to the child that is raptured is given 2 wings of the great eagle so that she may fly from the serpent into the wilderness. This is an allusion to how the woman represents Israel and Jews that will be persecuted by the Antichrist in the end times, and they will also hide in the wilderness. The Jews in Judea will flee into the wilderness, and it is believed by many, including myself, that they will flee to Petra, Jordan. And hide there for a little while, as Bible prophecy says, while the Antichrist is in Jerusalem, on the Temple Mount, doing his Antichrist thing. All right? And so that's the woman, and she's giving birth. Now, metaphorically, she's giving birth to the times of the Gentiles, the Christian church, which is then raptured. But don't make no mistake. It's not correct. When quote-unquote Christians are not correct when they say that all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. That's a result of false heretical doctrine, salvation doctrine, that is the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates, and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. So I'll just repeat that. Those who believe that all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured are the ones that Jesus is coming to make war on with the sword of his mouth. And let me tell you this too. I know far better than you or anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. This prediction that is being made in this video. It is for more than simply proving the righteous Christian God of the Bible. There is all kinds of evidence for that already. The purpose for this prediction that is from God, and the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, is to confirm for you the controversial things that I am saying in this video and on this video channel. Make no mistake. And there is no debate either. There's no discussion regarding these controversial things. The purpose of the prediction is to prove the matter. And I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. The purpose is not for you to go, oh, cool, neat, you were able to know this ahead of time. No, that is not the purpose of this prediction. I'll repeat myself. The purpose of this prediction is to prove the controversial things that I am saying. This is the purpose of prophecy. 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy for the purpose of God proving it is the inspired word of God. Jesus was recognized as being the Messiah, the Christ, through his fulfillment of prophecy, recognized by the disciples. What this prediction will prove is that what is being explained on this channel, is God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And the purpose of it is to prove these controversial things that are being overwhelmingly proven to be true through God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass, and this is the purpose of the prediction. To prove God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, and therefore prove the controversial things that I am saying in these videos. Okay, am I clear? In other words, there's no debate. If you believe that all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured, it is a red flag for you, and you need to re-examine your doctrine. And doctrine is important. No, it is not sufficient to simply say, oh, well, I just love Jesus. Okay? There's good reason why this is a problem. Free grace or cheap grace or once saved, always saved is the doctrine I'm talking about, with its close cousin, Reformed theology or sovereign grace, which both of these come in the packages of Calvinism or dispensationalism, which leads to all Christians will be raptured because of the dispensationalism, which is a workaround solution to the passages that flatly contradict their salvation doctrine of once saved, always saved. That's why they need to believe all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. That's the root of the problem. It's not just it's just the wrong idea. It's rooted in their salvation doctrine. That's the problem. And Jesus hates this doctrine. And I'm not going to explain to you in this video and prove to you how the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is what I've just described. It is. Case closed. Watch the other videos. And if you are a Christian, watch the 23 church signs video on this channel. Now, so although this flight of this great eagle, or rather the woman with the wings of the great eagle, regards the woman who symbolizes Jews and Israel, it is in the context of her child who is raptured. And so this could be justification or confirmation for this connection of 7 times 26 months from the release of the movie Black Swan. I'm going to get into more here because this is also confirmation. The date 217, which is what this 7 times 26 months connection gets us to, is symbolic of the flood, because the flood began on the 17th day of the second month in the book of Genesis. In fact, prior to this date 217 in 2018, it was predicted many, many days in advance, many weeks in advance, that the Weather Channel would name Winter Storm Noah on this date. And then it happened. This was actually one of the first predictions. And you know what? I think it might be the first prediction ever made by myself. I wasn't the only one making that prediction at the time, though. Anyway, yeah, that happened. Okay? And that's because of the Bible. That's why Winter Storm Noah was named as predicted on this date. Now, Noah was in the ark, and the ark was lifted up high off the earth, which is like flight symbolism. It's symbolic of the rapture, because the waters lifted it up high above the earth. And those who will be raptured will be lifted up high above the earth and meet the Lord in the clouds, as it says. Okay, so this is one way that this 7 times 26 months is relevant. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming the matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination or different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And so we establish these things through these second multiple witnesses. And so this is a confirmation that this 7 times 26 months connection from the Black Swan movie is relevant, because this date actually is symbolic of the rapture. Okay? But there's more. Natalie Portman won the Oscar for Best Actress for Black Swan in the Academy Awards that were held on February 25th, 2011. This was exactly 60 plus 60 plus 60 months before February 25th this year. This gives us 666, which hints at the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Okay, and the movie is dark. All right, and there's symbolism here too for the mark of the Antichrist, because she stabs herself. And people will stab themselves with the mark of the Antichrist. And I mean people have already, including the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians, have already stabbed themselves with the mark of the Antichrist. And it is the mark of the Antichrist, and it's case closed. There's no debate. your objections based on your understanding of Bible prophecy are incorrect when this prediction comes to pass. Case closed. You're wrong. Now, I don't mean to say it like that, but it's true. And if you would like to learn why the objections that you have are incorrect, watch the snake bite video on this channel. I cover these commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy, which is incorrect. Okay, including, by the way, dispensationalism. That's in fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is because they told themselves that it couldn't possibly be the mark of the Antichrist because of their doctrine of all Christians being raptured before the mark of the Antichrist, which is why this mark of the Antichrist that they have taken is judgment on them for this doctrine that Jesus said he is coming to make war on with the sword of his mouth, on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. Okay, now, but that said, there's nowhere in the Bible that says one cannot repent after having taken the mark of the Antichrist. But you should have known this. You should have not required this or prophecy to prove it for you. It was an unrighteous, and it was an abomination, and you knew it. And you knew it. Maybe if you're the extremely rare person didn't know anything, the completely ignorant, they don't know anything that's going on. But the majority of people, including quote-unquote Christians, knew that it was an abomination. They know, for example, that all VACCINEs use in their development stem cells from unborn babies. That makes it an abomination. All of them are, though. Not just the mark of the Antichrist. All of them have been abominations. And most people know this, including quote-unquote Christians, and they took it anyway. We also know that, and we knew, and they knew, that the whole concept of it was to change your chromosomes, to get your chromosomes to produce this abomination on the surface of your cell, to make your body start producing them without any end in sight. The stupidest thing one could possibly do. But because of the hysteria, they did it and followed the crowd and followed the herd towards the devil. And they deserved it. They knew this. They knew it. Now, by no means, though, is ruining your own body how it is a abomination. It's bad, but it's just you. What makes it truly unrighteous is by you taking it, you compelled the system, the Antichrist system. You fed it energy, you fed into it, which enabled it to compel others to take it or else lose their job. And so you participated in the compelling of others to take it. Because had the 40% of the spineless people in the middle that knew it wasn't good, but took it anyway to keep their jobs, had they joined the 30% that were fighting back against those, the true believer hypnotized other 30%, had the 40% joined us, the nightmare would have ended. But because they were unrighteous and went with it so that they could go on a vacation, they participated in it, and that's what makes it truly unrighteous also. It's not just about you. It's about how you enabled the system to compel other people to take it. And that also includes wearing the stupid MASKs, which are also unrighteous and demonic. And you know they don't have any benefit, but you did it anyway. Okay? In other words, you participated in the COVIDian nightmare, even if you knew it was wrong. And I'll say this too. I find it hard to fathom how any quote-unquote Christian went inside a building of God, inside a church, with a mask on. boggles my mind how that happened. A Christian wearing a mask and participating in this false pagan worship, this false religion of COVID, wearing a mask in a place of worship, and thereby compelling other Christians to wear it so that they could participate in the worship session. It's disgusting. All right, now, so there's more though. Natalie Portman. So I just said, okay. So I was getting at this. I was getting at the 666, which is associated with the mark of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Okay. So the winner, she won the Oscar for Black Swan, and she was awarded it on this date, exactly 60 plus 60 plus 60 months before February 25th. Now, it just so happens that this, and I knew this prior. I knew this before I discovered this 60 plus 60 plus 60 month connection. That February 25th, I knew it was, or it will be, exactly 311 weeks after the date 311, which is the Black Swan event. That was Coronavirus Day. Let me just go off on a tangent here for a second. I predicted Coronavirus Day. I predicted COVID. I'll tell you how. Back in November of 2019, I was documenting and predicting that on March 11th, 2020, months ahead of time, I was predicting that something very big, bad, and world-changing was going to happen on that date. And I did not say that about any other date in the 2020 year. I was only singling out that date, March 11th. And even up until March 10th, including actually March 11th, actually. I didn't even recognize it. Well, March 10th. Let's just go with March 10th to be simplistic here. I didn't even know what it would be until then, until March 11th. In fact, I still thought maybe what was going to happen was there going to be a dirty bomb explosion or a nuclear bomb explosion in New York City or something. But it was right in front of us, you know, because obviously by March 11th, this coronavirus thing was in the news every day. But that's what happened, because on March 11th, the coronavirus was officially declared to be a pandemic by the World Health Organization. So this was the official date. And on this day, everything started to shut down. That was the date. The NBA shut down when the first player tested positive, and God uses firsts for signs. The first symbolic first player tested positive of the NBA, which caused the first sports league to shut down, which then cascaded into everything shutting down. And that player, coincidentally, a few days earlier, had been mocking coronavirus in the media at a press conference and was international news. He was the guy that was making fun of COVID in the press conference, putting his hands on the microphone on the table, joking about it. He was the guy who was the first to test positive. Also, another first on that day, the first celebrity announced that he had COVID, Tom Hanks, while he was filming the movie Elvis in Australia, which is also prophetic. The king, as in the Antichrist king, but also King Apollyon in Revelation 9:11. All right, now, also on this day, Trump gave his coronavirus speech in the Oval Office. He only did 3 Oval Office speeches in his first term. And his speech ended precisely as the clock ticked 9:11 p.m., as in Revelation 9:11, King Apollyon, as in Tom Hanks on that same day, filming the movie Elvis, the king. Okay, now the way that I knew, the main reason, one of the reasons, but the main reason, because there were other reasons also, but the main reason why I knew, oh, and by the way, I'll say this too. On the anniversary of March 11th, in 2021, Biden gave his first public address speech since having been installed into the White House, and it was his big VACCINE speech. And in the speech, he said, at the beginning of the speech, he said that March 11th was the anniversary of coronavirus. So even, in other words, the so-called president agreed with me. that this was the symbolic day for coronavirus, okay? In other words, I predicted COVID. Okay, it's clear, right? Now, one of the main reasons I knew is that March 11, 2020, when Trump's speech ended at 9:11 p.m., was exactly 222 months after 9/11. And I knew this connection ahead of time. Well, why is 222 months after 9/11 relevant? Well, through the 9/11 events, God pointed to George Washington, who was born on the date 222. How did God point to George Washington on 9/11? Well, Washington was inaugurated in Lower Manhattan, which was the capital of the U.S. in the beginning. He was in Federal Hall, which, by the way, the foundation of which was cracked on 9/11 when the buildings collapsed, which symbolized the cracked foundation of America, its foundation being in God. Washington, after being inaugurated, marched down Wall Street because the Israelites marched around the walls of security of Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment. Washington, and they were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110, and 110 stories collapsed and cracked the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street. So Washington marched down Wall Street into Trinity Chapel, the historic chapel, and there consecrated the nation to God at the beginning of the nation, as in firsts, the first president. He consecrated the nation to God, saying, paraphrasing, if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings. And he knew this more than anyone because he saw the hand of God on his troops in the Revolutionary War, and he knew that they would not have won without God's help. There are great examples of God clearly intervening in the Revolutionary War and aiding the side of the patriots. That's another subject. So anyway, that church that Washington was in is now today nicknamed the Miracle Chapel because it was the only building at Ground Zero that survived the falling debris and did so even without even a broken window due to the sycamore tree, 70-year-old sycamore tree that was uprooted in the process of deflecting the debris from the chapel. In Isaiah 9:11, which is in every 365-day Bible, the reading on every September 11th includes Isaiah 9:11, it says that the bricks have fallen and we will replace them with the hewn stone, and the sycamore trees have been uprooted, but we will replace them with the Erez trees. And it was a sycamore tree that was uprooted. And today there is a 20-foot high bronze statue of the roots of the tree outside of the chapel to commemorate this tree that saved the chapel. But anyway, God pointed to the chapel in order to point to George Washington, who consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings, which it temporarily did on 9/11. And Isaiah 9:11 is a warning. Just like 9/11, 2001 was a warning for America, Isaiah 9:11 was a warning to the ancient Israelites who didn't heed the warning, and then as a result, the nation was destroyed and they were exiled to Babylon for 70 years, which is why the tree was 70 years old. And they went to Babylon, and it was the northern kingdom that was raided by the world's first documented terrorists, the ancient Assyrians, which is the same part of the world that the terrorists came on 9/11. And they first hit the North Tower. That's because the northern kingdom was hit by the ancient Assyrians. Okay, so I predicted COVID. Now, why did I get into that? Because I started talking about this March 11th, 2020 date, which connects with 3/11. Now, God is using pairings of 3 and 2 ones in his signs to hint at a couple of things. Joe Biden, because Joseph, as in Joseph Biden, which is why he gave his big speech on the date 3/11, because Joseph was the 11th son of the third patriarch in the Bible. But that's part of the process of God using these 3s and 1s to point to G131 in the Greek concordance, which is the word that means blood disease, which is what a person gets when they take the mark of the Antichrist, which was supposedly to counter the CVD disease. But of course, that was a big lie. Okay, and so, also what I want to say here is that I think this Black Swan event will be multi-day. It'll be more than one day. I think also February 25th will be a Black Swan day. In other words, what I'm saying is that February 17th and February 25th, and also, by the way, March 3rd, are all being pointed to, and it seems that they will all be Black Swan event dates. Either that or this whole 2-week period will be a big Black Swan 2-week period from February 17th to, I guess, March 3rd, or maybe even beyond. But we can expect either this whole period or specifically on these dates, big stock market losses on these 3 dates. Now, she won the Best Actress award at the 83rd Oscars. 83 is the 23rd prime number. Portman is 44 years old. Furthermore, her name Portman hints at portal, which is a door, and it is a door or a portal that is opened with a key in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, which includes Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon. Anyway, in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, he pairs the numbers 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses. Confirming matters the Bible says is required. This is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And I know that these are the numbers because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. That said, it was recognized early on that God pairs these certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And these are the numbers, and it is because the 44th president is also the basketball president who wore number 23 in high school basketball. And pairings of 23 and 44 are the building blocks of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And only this channel knows this. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works on the building blocks of pairing these numbers together. Why? Because the foundation of the end time signs here largely identifies the 2 antichrists. In other words, identifying the antichrist is the foundation of God's big picture of signs. It's, well, not the foundation, but it is a big part of the true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. Like, I don't know what percentage of the signs relate to the Antichrist, but it's well over 50%. It's probably something like 70 or 80% of the signs include in some way a reference to the Antichrist. Maybe even more than 80%. But anyway, 23 and 44 confirms the matter. That's why she's 44 years old right now. It's because her movie Black Swan and her award at the 23rd prime number of Oscars connect with this Black Swan period that I'm predicting here. That's why she's 44 right now, because she won the award in the 23rd prime number awards. It's amazing, and this confirms the matter. It's amazing. In other words, this Black Swan event is not going to happen after her birthday, which is in June. But it's going to happen right now. That's the prediction. But I'm saying to drive home the point that I'm making is that the 44 pairs with the 23. So in other words, it won't happen when she's 45. This Black Swan event. It's going to happen right now, though. Okay, Portman was born in Jerusalem. She has dual citizenship, and she's known for this. The woman in Revelation 12. Okay, so the woman, like I said, represents Israel. But at the same time, I'm saying that it's symbolic of the church that will be raptured. Well, the church is symbolized by America, because America is God's Gentile nation of disciples that he used to spread the gospel around the world in the 19th and 20th centuries. Long story short, there are only 2 nations in the history of the world that were founded on a relationship with God and the Bible, Israel and America. America is a Gentile, is an Israel, a chosen nation. Anyway, she's got dual citizenship. She's the woman. The fact that she was born in Jerusalem confirms that what I'm saying here is that this 7 times 26 months connection is relevant because of the word rapio or rapture in Revelation 12 regarding the woman. So Portman is here in this sign symbolic of the woman, because she was born in Jerusalem. And again, it is the Jews in Jerusalem that will be hiding in the wilderness, just like in prophecy, the woman goes and hides in the wilderness. So that's why I have all these exclamation marks here. This totally confirms the matter now. So Portman, the Black Swan, was born on June 9th, 1981, exactly 2,332 weeks before February 17th, this prediction for the Black Swan event. This number, 2332, is the 1987th composite number, which means a non-prime number. That's clearly a hint at the big Black Swan event that was the 1987 crash. And it's referred to as such. It's Black Monday or the 1987 crash, but it was a one-day event. It was a Black Swan event. By the way, I said earlier, I was one of the few that knew ahead of time the 2008 crash. Well, Robert Prechter, the founder of Elliott Wave International, became famous in a way. I mean, he has fame for predicting Black Monday, because the Elliott Wave pattern right before Black Monday, it demonstrated that there would be a Black Monday event, and then there was. So these things can be predicted ahead of time. It's incorrect to say that no one saw Black Monday coming. Robert Prechter did. I've been following Elliott Wave analysis for like almost 20 years. Okay. Anyway, that's an amazing, this 1987 composite number connection is amazing. Furthermore, Portman was born in the 80s. You know what? I wonder if her date connects to the actual date of the crash. Let me just check. All right, it does. Yeah. Her birthday is exactly 23 days before Black Monday on October 19th, 1987. 23 days hints at this 32 weeks connection. It's a rhyme, it's a pattern, which is how prophecy and God's signs works. Pattern, rhyming together kind of thing, right? Pairings of 23 and 44, right? This is confirmation in my opinion. I mean, we don't need this. I mean, we'll wait to see what happens on February 17th, and if it turns out it's a Black Swan event, well, obviously I'm probably right that 23 days confirms the 32 weeks. Yeah, amazing. Furthermore, it's a repetition of 23, and she won the award. Her big Oscar night was the 23rd Oscars, 23rd Prime Oscars. That's amazing. So the actress who won the award for Black Swan at the 23rd Prime Oscars was born 23 days before the big Black Swan event of Black Monday. Wow. That really does confirm it all. Wow. And she was born 44 years ago, and that pairs with 23. And she was born 23 days before the Black Swan event. And she won the award at the 23rd Prime Oscars. Stunning. Oh, wow. Wow. And then we have this 1987 composite connection here to this predicted Black Swan event on February 17th. Wow. What is going to happen? What is going to happen on February 17th? Crazy. Wow. Stunning. Okay. So that's so amazing. It's okay. Time to regroup and move on here. So on February 13th, the Dow closed at 49,500. The NASDAQ closed at 50. And this was just shortly after it had closed above 50,000 for the first time. So 49,500. The NASDAQ lost 50. And the S&P 500 gained 3.41. 340, and these served to point to the S&P's gain of 3.41, the S&P 500's gain. Okay, and so 341, which is what is being pointed to, is the 110th semi-prime number, and this number is associated with the collapse of the walls of Jericho because Joshua died at the age of 110. The towers that were 110 stories collapsed near Wall Street, which is where the stock market is, and it's predicted to collapse, the stock market. That's why and these are stock market signs here that give us the 341 110th semi-prime number. And a semi-prime number is, by the way, a number that is only divisible by two other prime numbers, and God uses this. So this is an amazing connection here. Okay, now, but the point here too is that on this day of the number that points to the collapse of the stock market, the same day was the day that the figure skater, the U.S. Olympic figure skater, collapsed. The skater, no, get this though. The skater, this guy, what's his name? Ilya Mililin. The skater was dressed in an all black outfit. And you know what? It was very feminine. Sparkly. He was a black swan. That's right. The figure skating is similar to ballet. And if you know the movie The Black Swan, it's about ballet. Natalie Portman is a ballerina, and she studied ballet for many months before making the movie, in order to make the movie, which is why she won the Oscar, and one of the reasons, I'm sure. The unexpected collapse of the heavily favored skater, this is what makes it a black swan. So this was a big news story on the day, because apparently, I mean, who follows figure skating, right? But we learned all of this on the Friday here, February 13th. The whole figure skating world was in shock because of the unexpected collapse of the most heavily favored skater in many years. Like, the guy had been dominating the whole figure skating world for years leading up to the Olympics, but he totally collapsed. Literally even. He fell twice. He totally collapsed in his final skate and lost the gold medal. He finished 8th, which is 4 plus 4. And he was dressed in all black, and this was a Black Swan event because this is exactly what a Black Swan event is. Not only was he dressed in black, and not only is figure skating elegant and feminine like ballet, and not only was his outfit feminine and elegant, but it was a Black Swan event even if he was dressed in red, because he unexpectedly collapsed. It was a total shock, which is exactly what a Black Swan event is. It's stunning. Now, Portman, as I said, hints at portal or a door, and door is symbolized by the number 4 because the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the symbol for a door. And so 4 days after this collapse of the figure skater, which hints at Natalie Portman in the movie Black Swan, as I just explained, okay, the Black Swan figure skating sign, prophetic sign, is 4 days before February 17th. And Portman is 44 years old. Amazing. So there you have it. When this prediction comes to pass, make sure you watch every minute of every video on this channel. The wise person will know this. And God bless. Okay, there's something else here that makes this even more amazing. Let me just go through it again here. So Portman, the actress from Black Swan, was born on June 9th, 1981, exactly 23-32 weeks before February 17th, the predicted date for this predicted Black Swan event. Okay, 2332 is the 1987 composite number, which seems to hint at the big Black Swan event, which was the Black Monday, the stock market's biggest loss in terms of percentage in one day. And how much did it lose? That's the thing I forgot to add here. How much percent did the Dow lose on this date, this Black Monday, as in Black Swan? It lost 23%. in one day. How could I have forgotten that? So Portman of Black Swan was born on this June 9th date, 1981, 23 days before the big Black Swan event that was Black Monday on October 19th, 1987, when the Dow lost 23%. 23 days to the Black Swan event when the Dow lost 23% from the birth of the actress in Black Swan. And she won the Oscar for Black Swan in the 23rd Prime Oscars. And all of this is stunning confirmation. This 23 days is stunning confirmation, and the 23% and the 23rd Prime Oscars is all confirmation for the 32 weeks exactly to February 17th. Amazing. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.